Picture a single truck driver. He's navigating a hairpin bend on the icy, treacherous slopes of the Himalayas, inching this massive payload toward Leh.
Right.
The air is thin, the drop is sheer, and the engine is just straining against the
I
altitude.
can almost feel the cold.
Now cut to the humidity and the roar of Mumbai. Imagine a local train pulling into Churchgate, packed with millions of people. I mean, literally the lifeblood of the city, flowing in this rhythmic, chaotic surge.
It's such a staggering image when you put them side by side like that. You know, the isolation of the mountains versus the sheer density of the metropolis.
Exactly.
And we often think of transport as just, getting from point A to point B. But when you look at the scale of India, what we're really talking about is the circulation system of a massive economic organism.
The circulation system, I like that.
Yeah, without these arteries, the roads, the rails, the waterways, and, the invisible digital highways, the massive organism that is India would cease to function.
That is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're looking at the veins and arteries of the subcontinent. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
This is a special edition, and it's powered specifically by the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel.
And we have a very specific mission today. We aren't just chatting about trains and boats. We are tackling NCERT Class 12 India, People and Economy, Chapter 10, Transport and Communication.
But, and this is a really big but, we are not just going to read the chapter to you. I mean, that would be a complete waste of your time.
Right. The goal is to take that raw text and synthesize it with actual UPSC Previous Year Questions. We're talking 2013 all the way up to 2025. We want to show you how to read this chapter so you can actually extract the marks on exam day.
Before we get the wheels turning, I do have a quick request for everyone listening. We're trying to build something sustainable here, high utility, retention-focused content. So if you find value in this deep dive, please just take a second and hit that subscribe button on the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel. It tells the algorithm that this kind of dense, analytical content is actually wanted.
And, if you're in a position to, we humbly ask for your support on Patreon. It's literally your support that keeps the lights on and lets us do the research required for this level of analysis.
A huge, massive thank you to our current patrons. You're the ones who make this possible. Also, please engage with us. Like the audio, leave a comment, tell us what you agree with or what we missed.
And for the students who need the hard copy, we have free notes with practice PYQs waiting for you on our public Telegram channel.
Yeah, don't miss that.
And for those who want to save time and get everything organized, you can DM us on the public channel to join the private library. That gets you access to all the videos in this series at once, plus the premium notes. And those include the model mains answers, which are, they're gold dust for understanding how to structure your thoughts.
They really are. Okay, housekeeping done. Let's get into the weeds. We are starting with the lifelines on land, road transport.
A logical place to start. When you look at the raw data, India's road network is it's a behemoth. The source text references data going back to 2005, citing a total length of 33.1 lakh kilometers.
And that's 2005. It must be way more now.
Oh, absolutely. That number has grown significantly. But even at that baseline, it's one of the largest networks in the world.
It's a huge number, but numbers can be abstract. What does 33 lakh kilometers actually represent for the economy?
It represents the last mile. That is the phrase you really need to lock in. See, railways can take you city to city, airplanes can take you hub to hub, but roads?
Roads take you door to door.
Exactly. The NCERT highlights that roads carry about 85% of passenger traffic and a whopping 70% of freight traffic.
85%. That is just an overwhelming majority.
It is, and it explains why our infrastructure is constantly under such immense pressure. But this isn't a modern phenomenon. We tend to think of traffic and roads as a 21st century problem, but the NCERT makes a point of digging into the history here.
Right.
India has been a road-building civilization for a very long time.
Right. It explicitly mentions Sher Shah Suri. I remember reading about him in school, but the text calls him a visionary. What made his approach to roads so special?
It was all about consolidation. He built the Shahi Road, the Royal Road, to strengthen and administer his empire. It stretched all the way from the Indus Valley in the northwest down to the Sonar Valley in Bengal.
Wow.
He understood a fundamental truth: you cannot rule what you cannot reach.
And that legacy didn't just die with him, did it?
No, not at all. The British inherited it. They renamed it the Grand Trunk Road, or GT Road, connecting Calcutta and Peshawar. And here is where it gets really interesting for a geography student.
Yeah.
If you look at a modern map, that historic route roughly corresponds to National Highway 1 and National Highway 2.
So we're literally driving on history.
We are driving on the same alignments that armies and traders have used for 500 years. And why? Because the geography hasn't changed. The route follows the path of least resistance through the river plains. It's a perfect example of how physical geography dictates human infrastructure.
That's a great insight. Speaking of modern alignments, let's unpack the hierarchy. The NCERT classifies roads into 4 main groups. Let's start at the top of the food chain, national highways.
These are the main arteries. They're maintained by the central government, and they're crucial for interstate transport and, just as importantly, for moving defense personnel and material in strategic areas.
I was looking at the stats for national highways, and there's a really glaring disparity here. The text says they make up only 2% of the total road length. Just 2%.
Yeah.
But they carry 40% of the road traffic.
That is the classic bottleneck statistic. I
Yeah.
mean, imagine 40% of the blood in your body trying to squeeze through just 2% of your veins.
Wow, what an image.
That's the pressure on the Indian NH network. And this is why you see such a frantic focus on widening lanes, building flyovers, constructing bypasses. The text introduces the National Highways Authority of India, NHAI, operationalized in 1995, as the autonomous body responsible for trying to fix this imbalance.
1995 feels relatively recent given the sheer scale of the work. But this brings us to a really critical exam linkage, doesn't it?
It does.
The text mentions the NHAI, but it doesn't really criticize it. It just states a fact. The UPSC exam, on the other hand, does.
Precisely. You have to look at the 2013 GS3 question. Adoption of PPP model for infrastructure development of the country has not been free of criticisms.
So the NCERT gives us the fact NHAI develops roads, but the exam is asking about the method. Can you break down that link for us?
Sure. So the NHAI can't possibly fund all these roads with taxpayer money alone. It's just too expensive.
Right.
So they use the public-private partnership, or PPP model. A private company comes in, builds the road, and then collects the toll for, say, 20 or 30 years to recover their cost, and then hands the road back to the government. That's the theory, anyway.
And the criticism, where does it fall apart?
Well, the criticism is that the model often hits roadblocks, pun fully intended. You have huge issues with land acquisition delays where farmers or local bodies refuse to give up land, and that can stall a project for years. Then you have issues with toll collection, locals protesting tolls, or maybe the traffic estimates were just wrong.
Oh, right.
Which means the private company loses money and becomes a non-performing asset, an NPA, for the banks that funded it. So when you read NHAI in the textbook, you have to mentally attach these operational challenges to it. That's how you answer that mains question.
That's a pro tip right there. Don't just memorize the agency, understand its operational environment. Okay, let's move down the ladder. We have state highways.
Right. These connect the state capitals to the district headquarters. They make up about 4% of the road length. Then you have district roads, which link the district headquarters to other important places in the district. That's about 14%.
And then the giant at the bottom of the pyramid, rural roads.
The massive bulk. About 80% of the total road length in India falls under rural roads. And while they aren't as glamorous as the 6-lane highways, they are arguably more vital for the common person.
Why do you say that? Is it just about connecting villages?
It's about the rural-urban linkage. Think about agriculture. You cannot have a functioning agricultural economy if the farmer can't get their perishable produce to the market within 24 hours.
Right. If the road is bad, the tomatoes rot.
Exactly. The text mentions the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, PMGSY, as a key scheme here. It's not just about building roads, it's economic enablement.
But there's a geographical nuance the NCERT points out about these roads. The density isn't uniform at all.
Right. I mean, why is road density so high in Kerala or the Northern Plains, but so low in Jammu and Kashmir or the Northeast?
I'm assuming it's the mountains, the terrain.
It's 2 factors. Terrain and economic development. It is exponentially harder and more expensive to build roads in the tectonically unstable Himalayas than in the flat Gangetic Plain.
Sure.
And historically, areas with lower economic activity attracted less investment, which then kept economic activity low. It's a vicious cycle.
Speaking of breaking cycles and making massive investments, let's talk about the game changers, the major projects. The text highlights the Golden Quadrilateral.
This was a massive, massive undertaking. We're talking 5,846 kilometers of 4 to 6 lane highways connecting the big 4 metropolises, Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata.
What was the strategic goal there? Was it just to make the drive faster for people?
It's about reducing the friction of doing business. These 4 cities are the engines of the Indian economy. By connecting them with high-speed roads, you reduce time, distance, and cost. It's the multiplier effect.
How so?
If a truck can get from Delhi to Mumbai in 24 hours instead of 48, the cost of goods drops and the velocity of trade doubles.
That makes perfect sense. Speed is money. Then you have the corridors.
Yeah.
The north-south corridor connecting Srinagar to Kanyakumari, and the east-west corridor.
Yeah, connecting Silchar in Assam all the way to Porbandar in Gujarat.
Silchar to Porbandar. That really does span the entire breadth of the nation.
It's incredible when you think about it.
It is. And speaking of the breadth of the nation, and specifically the borders, we have to talk about the BRO, the Border Roads Organization.
Established in 1960, these guys seem to have a sort of legendary status.
They do, and for very good reason. The BRO isn't just a construction company, they're a strategic asset. They build and maintain roads in some of the most hostile environments on the entire planet. The NCERT mentions the road from Chandigarh to Manali and then on to Leh. That road runs at an average altitude of 4,270 meters.
That is higher than the peak of the Matterhorn in Europe, just to put that in perspective.
Exactly. And they aren't just paving asphalt. They're handling snow clearance, landslides, sub-zero temperatures. Their main role is strengthening defense preparedness. If you look at recent geopolitical tensions, the ability of the BRO to move troops and equipment to the border quickly is literally a matter of national security.
So roads in the interior are about the economy, but roads on the border are about sovereignty.
That's a perfect way to put it. And that brings us to the end of the road section. But before we switch tracks, I want the listener to just pause for a second. Next time you're stuck in traffic or driving on a highway, look at the milestone.
Oh, yeah.
Is it white and yellow? That's a national highway. Is it green and white? That's a state highway. Connecting the theory to your daily reality is the best way to retain it.
Great advice. Okay, let's switch gears. Or rather, let's switch tracks. We are moving to the iron backbone of the Indian Railways.
The scale of the Indian Railways is just. It's difficult to comprehend. It's the largest government undertaking in the country. A network length of over 63,000 kilometers.
And it started way back in 1853. Bombay to Thane, a humble 34 kilometers.
A short trip that completely changed history. But I love a quote the insert includes from Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "Railways brought people of diverse cultures together to contribute to India's freedom struggle."
That is a beautiful sentiment, and it highlights a paradox, doesn't it? We usually think of the British building railways to exploit resources, to suck cotton out of the hinterland and send it to Manchester.
Right, which is true.
Which is true, but Gandhi flipped it on its head. He saw it as a tool for unification.
It's the law of unintended consequences. The colonizers built it to move troops and extract wealth.
But the freedom fighters used it to travel, to organize, and to build a national identity.
Exactly.
You can't have a national movement if people in Bengal have never met people in Maharashtra. The train made that meeting possible.
Now, managing this beast must be a logistical nightmare. 63,000 kilometers is a lot of track to oversee from one office in Delhi.
It is, which is why the system is decentralized into zones. The text mentions 16 zones. And here's a fun little trivia challenge for you, or rather, a geographical logic challenge.
Okay, I'm ready.
Why are cities like Mumbai, Kolkata, and Delhi headquarters for multiple zones, or particularly massive zones?
I'm guessing it's not just because they're big cities. There has to be more to it.
It's a mix of population density and colonial legacy. These were the bridgeheads of British expansion. The railway lines radiated out from these port cities in the capital. So naturally, the administrative structures coalesce there. Even today, the flow of the network is heavily weighted toward these historic hubs.
That makes a lot of sense. Now let's talk about the tracks themselves, the gauge system. I feel like this is something we take for granted, but the text breaks it down into broad, meter, and narrow gauge.
This is absolutely crucial for understanding efficiency. Broad gauge is 1.676 meters wide. In the source data, it accounted for about 74% of the route. Meter gauge is exactly 1 meter, and narrow gauge is tiny, less than a meter, and you mostly find it in hilly areas like Darjeeling or Shimla.
And the policy now is Unigauge, right? Converting everything to broad gauge. But why spend billions just to widen the track by half a meter? What's the big deal?
It's all about a concept called transshipment. Imagine you're shipping coal from a mine on a broad gauge line. It travels 500 kilometers, then it hits a meter gauge line.
Oh.
You have to stop the train, unload thousands of tons of coal, and then reload it onto smaller wagons. That takes days. It costs a ton of money. It damages the goods.
So it acts like a clog in the pipe.
Exactly. It's a massive bottleneck. A uniform gauge creates a seamless pipe. You load it once, and it goes all the way to the destination. Unigauge is all about speed and capacity.
Speaking of engineering feats, the NCERT highlights the Konkan Railway. This seems to be a favorite case study.
It is an absolute marvel. Constructed in 1998, connecting Roha in Maharashtra to Mangalore in Karnataka, 760 kilometers. But to appreciate it, you have to understand the terrain. It runs right through the Western Ghats.
The numbers are just insane. It crosses 146 rivers, nearly 2,000 bridges, and 91 tunnels.
Including Asia's largest tunnel at the time, at 6.5 kilometers. Before this railway, the western coast south of Mumbai was surprisingly isolated. You had the mountains on one side and the sea on the other. It was a kind of geographical cul-de-sac.
So the railway just punched through the wall.
Literally, it unzipped that entire region, opening it up for massive economic development. But it came with incredible challenges. Landslides, tunnels collapsing during construction. It's a real testament to Indian engineering.
It's incredible. But let's look at the map again. The text notes that the railway network is very dense in the northern plains, but it's sparse in the hills, the northeast, and places like Rajasthan.
And again, it comes down to the cost of construction versus the return on investment. The northern plains are flat, densely populated, and agriculturally rich. It's cheap to lay track, and there are millions of customers.
Right.
In the desert of Rajasthan, you have shifting sands, literally difficult to build on, and fewer people. In the northeast, you have rugged mountains and dense forests. The economics just don't add up in the same way.
This spatial distribution isn't just about where people are. It determines where industries go. And that links us directly to a PYQ, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Look at the 2014 GS1 question. Account for the change in the spatial pattern of the iron and steel industry in the world.
How does this chapter on transport help us answer a question about the steel industry?
Well, the text explicitly states that industries initially concentrated in ports like Mumbai and Kolkata, because that's where the transport links were.
Okay.
But, and this is the key, the railways allowed them to shift to interior locations, closer to their raw material sources.
Can we break that logic down a bit?
Sure. Think about steel. You need iron ore and coal. Both are heavy and bulky. If you don't have railways, you have to bring those raw materials all the way to the port to process them, which is incredibly expensive.
Right, that makes sense.
But once you have a railway line, you can build the steel plant right next to the mine in Jharkhand or Odisha. You save a fortune on transporting the raw material, and you only have to ship the finished, higher-value steel.
So the railway is the cause of the industrial shift. It liberated industry from the coast.
Exactly. That is the insight you need for the mains answer.
Yeah.
You aren't just memorizing facts. You're understanding the economic logic that's driven by transport infrastructure.
That is a huge light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Okay, moving from the tracks to the waves, let's talk about the blue economy water transport.
Water transport is fascinating because it's a bit of a paradox. It is the cheapest mode of transport, the most fuel efficient, and the most eco-friendly.
Okay.
Yet in India, it faces really tough competition from road and rail.
So why is that? If it's so cheap and so good, why aren't we using it more?
Well, the NCERT points out a few structural issues. One is reliability and speed. It's slow. But the bigger issue, specifically for inland waterways, is water diversion.
You mean taking water out for farming and irrigation?
Yes, exactly. Rivers like the Ganga are heavily tapped for irrigation canals. If you pull too much water out upstream, the water level downstream drops. Large barges need a minimum depth, what they call a draft, to float. You can't sail a cargo ship on a dry riverbed.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But we do have some major waterways that are operational. The text lists National Waterway 1, or NW1.
That's the most important one, Allahabad to Haldia on the Ganga. It's divided into 3 developmental stretches, and it's a crucial artery for the densely populated Gangetic belt, moving bulk goods like coal and cement.
And down south, we have the famous Kerala backwaters.
Yes, the Kayals. They are vital for local transport, but also, as the text notes, for tourism. The famous Valankali boat race, the snake boat race, happens there. That's a form of cultural transport, if you will.
I've seen videos of that. It's absolutely electric. Now, here's another PYQ link. 2020 GS1 asked about the interlinking of rivers.
Right. And usually students think of river interlinking just as a solution for drought and flood, moving water from surplus to deficit areas.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
But if you've read this chapter carefully, you realize there's a third dimension. Transport.
How so?
If you interlink rivers and maintain consistent water levels, you effectively create a massive inland navigation grid, similar to what Europe has with the Danube and Rhine. That reduces logistics costs for the whole economy. So when you answer that question, don't forget to mention the navigation angle derived from this chapter. It adds a layer of depth that most other candidates will probably miss.
That is an excellent point. Now let's head out to sea. Oceanic routes and ports.
India has a massive coastline, 7,517 kilometers, and the text makes a very clear distinction. 95% of our foreign trade by volume moves by sea.
95%. That is practically everything.
By value, it's 70%, which implies that high-value, low-volume goods like diamonds or electronics might go by air, but the bulk, the oil, the coal, the grain, the machinery, all goes by ship.
Now, I notice a curious question posed in the text itself. It asks, why does the West Coast have more ports than the East Coast?
This is a classic geography question. The answer lies in the physical nature of the coastline itself. The West Coast is a submerged coast.
What does that mean?
Think of it as land that has sunk or sea level that has risen. This process creates natural indentations in deep water right up to the cliff face. That makes it absolutely perfect for natural harbors.
And the East Coast is the opposite.
Exactly. The East Coast is an emergent coast. It's characterized by deltas, the Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri. These rivers dump millions of tons of sand and silt into the ocean, so the sea is shallow for kilometers out. To build a port there, you have to constantly dredge. You have to dig out the sand. It's expensive and it's difficult.
So geography dictates the economy again.
Let's do a quick run-through of the major ports profiled in the text. I'll name the port, you give me the deep dive headline. Not just the location, but the reason for its existence.
All right, let's do it.
Kandla.
The child of partition. Before 1947, the entire Northwest was served by Karachi. When Pakistan was created, we lost Karachi. So we built Kandla specifically to replace it and relieve the pressure on Mumbai. It handles huge amounts of petroleum and fertilizer.
Mumbai.
The big boss. It's the largest natural harbor. Its hinterland, the area it serves, covers a massive chunk of central and north India. It's the primary gateway to the country.
Jawaharlal Nehru Port or Nova Sheva.
The satellite.
Yeah.
Built right across the bay to take the load off Mumbai. Mumbai was literally choking on traffic, so Nava Sheva was purpose-built to handle containers. It is now the largest container port in India.
Marmago in Goa.
The iron exporter. Its significance just skyrocketed after the Konkan railway connected it to the interior. Before the railway, it was a local port. After the railway, it became a global exit point for iron ore from the region. New Mangalore.
The gateway for Karnataka's iron ore, specifically handling the concentrates from the Kudramukh mines.
Kochi.
Queen of the Arabian Sea. It's a natural harbor. Its superpower is its location. It sits right near the main Suez-Colombo global shipping route. It doesn't have to deviate much to catch the big ships passing by.
Okay, let's swing around to the East Coast. Kolkata.
The riverine port. This one is tricky. It sits on the Hooghly River, 128 kilometers inland from the sea. Its biggest problem is silt accumulation. They have to constantly dredge it. But it serves a massive hinterland, including the northeast, Nepal, and Bhutan.
Haldia.
The helper, built downstream from Kolkata. And why? Because large modern ships couldn't make it up the shallow river to Kolkata anymore, so Haldia catches them before they enter the river proper.
Parabib.
Deep water. It's ideally suited for exporting iron ore from Odisha. It has the advantage of being a deep lagoon harbor.
Visakhapatnam.
The landlocked harbor. It's connected to the sea by a channel that was cut through solid rock, very secure, very deep. The oldest artificial harbor on the East Coast. And because it's artificial, it struggles with shallow waters, so big modern supertankers have a hard time docking there.
And finally, Innor.
The new kid on the block, developed specifically to help Chennai out, much like Nava Sheva helps Mumbai. It's located about 25 kilometers north of Chennai.
That is a solid tour of the Indian coast. It really shows how our trade infrastructure is laid out.
And remember, for the exam, don't just memorize the list. Understand the function. Why was Kandla built? Because of partition. Why was Innor built? Because of congestion. It's all about cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Yeah.
That really is the mantra, isn't it? Okay, we've covered land and sea. Now we look up segment 4, the skies and the signals.
Air transport, the fastest mode. In a country as vast and with such diverse terrain as India, it is absolutely essential.
The history here is pretty quirky. It started in 1911 with an airmail operation from Allahabad to Naini.
A grand distance of 10 kilometers. But from that very humble start, It just exploded post-independence. The text outlines the structure. The Airport Authority of India, AAI, managing the ground, and the historical division between Air India for international flights and Indian Airlines for domestic.
The text also mentions Pawan Hans. It sounds like a character from a movie, but it's actually a helicopter service.
A very crucial one. Pawan Hans isn't about luxury travel, it's about access. It provides services to the petroleum sector, think offshore oil rigs like Bombay High, and it's a lifeline for hilly areas and the Northeast where you simply cannot build a runway.
Right.
Helicopters can land where airplanes cannot.
So, again, it's transport adapting to the specific terrain.
Yeah.
Now let's move to the invisible transport, communication.
The text traces a beautiful arc here, from beating drums and using birds,
I would love to see the bird section in a modern logistics report.
all the way to satellites. It divides communication into personal and mass.
Personal being the internet and email.
Right. The text calls the internet a huge central warehouse of data. It mentions e-commerce and money transactions, and this is where we need to kind of bridge the gap to the present day.
Yeah, it feels a little dated.
It does. The NCERT text mentioning cyber cafes as a proliferation phenomenon feels old since now everyone has a smartphone, but the core concept of a digital network is more relevant than ever.
Right, and this links directly to the 2016 GS2 question. E-governance projects have a built-in bias towards technology, and the 2025 GS1 question on smart cities.
And how do you connect them? Well, you simply cannot have a smart city without the optical fiber and satellite links that are discussed in this chapter. The communication infrastructure is the plumbing of the digital age.
Plumbing's a great analogy. People only ever notice it when it breaks.
Exactly. When you talk about UPI payments or direct benefit transfers in your exam answers, you have to acknowledge the physical infrastructure that makes it all possible. It's not magic, it's cables and satellites.
We also have mass communication, radio and TV.
Radio has a long, rich history. Started in 1923 by the Radio Club of Bombay. Then it became All India Radio, and finally Akashwani in 1957. Radio was, and in many places still is, a primary tool for education and information in rural India.
Then came television Doordarshan, and the game changer there was NCERT.
The satellite, yes. Before satellites, TV coverage was limited to the big cities. NCERT allowed for common national programs to be beamed directly into remote rural areas. That is a massive step for national integration. Suddenly, a villager in Rajasthan and a fisherman in Kerala could watch the same news, the same cricket match.
Speaking of satellites, the text groups them into two main types, INSAT and IRS.
Right. The easy way to remember is INSAT is for communication and meteorology, you know, talking and watching the weather, warning fishermen about cyclones. IRS is Indian remote sensing. That's for looking at the earth, finding groundwater, mapping forests, checking crop health.
Strategic reasons again.
Absolutely. Border surveillance. You can't separate communication from national security.
So we've covered the roads, the rails, the water, the air, and the data.
It's a complete system.
It really is. Let's try and bring this all together in our outro.
To summarize, you really have 4 pillars. Roads, the last mile connector that handles the bulk of the traffic but faces huge quality and congestion issues. Railways, the iron backbone that moves bulk goods and passengers across vast distances, and historically it shifted our industrial centers.
Right.
Water, the underutilized but potentially revolutionary blue economy option for cheap bulk transport. And finally, air and communication, the vectors of speed and modernity, shrinking the nation and connecting it digitally.
And the final, so what? Why does any of this matter beyond the exam?
I think you have to connect it back to that Gandhi quote, national integration. India is a continent masquerading as a country. It has diverse languages, diverse terrains, diverse economies. Transport is the stitching that holds this massive, beautiful patchwork quilt together.
That is a powerful image, the stitching of the nation.
If the roads fail, the economy fragments. If the railways stop, the cultural exchange halts. And here's a provocative thought for you, for the listener to take away. We talked about how railways changed the hinterland of ports.
Right.
Today, with the rise of digital communication, the internet, satellites, 5G, which is reducing the need for physical movement, how will the definition of a hinterland change in the next 20 years?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if I'm a software developer in Bangalore and I'm exporting code to California, where is my port? Is it the airport? Is it the fiber optic cable coming out of the sea? Does a port even need a physical hinterland anymore if the primary export becomes digital services?
Whoa. That is something to chew on. Is the next Grand Trunk Road a fiber optic cable?
It just might be. And the toll collectors will be the ISPs.
That's a wrap on the content, folks. But before you go, we have to stick to our mandate because we really want to keep helping you win.
If you found value in this deep dive, please hit that subscribe button on the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel. It really, really helps us out.
And if you're capable, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's your support that allows us to keep creating these super useful content pieces.
A massive thank you again to all our patrons. You are the fuel in our engine.
Don't forget to like this video or audio and leave a comment. It truly helps the algorithm find other learners. And remember, check the Telegram channel for those free notes and practice PYQs.
And for the serious aspirants, DM us to join the private library for the premium notes, extra PYQs, and those all-important model mains answers.
Thanks for listening. Keep learning and keep moving.
See you in the next deep dive.